Okay, going to be doing a few examples using factoring and the guess and check option or FOIL, and then also factoring using generic rectangles. So here are a couple of examples. If we want to go ahead and take this quadratic or trinomial, we can break it up into a binomial times a binomial, or factoring it. So first times our first, x times x is going to be x squared. Last times last needs to be a plus 7. So that tells me the signs are either going to be both negative or both positive. In this case, since the middle terms are going to end up being a positive 8x, when you combine them, I know that they both have to be positive. And then factors of 7 are just going to be 7 and 1. And so if I double check it, my first times my first gives me x squared. My last times my last gives me 7. And then the outers and the inners of FOIL, so FOIL. First times first is x squared. Last times last gives me 7. And then my outers and my inners. So outers would be x times 1. And that's going to give us x. And then our inners gives us 7x. When we combine them, we're going to get 8x. So that's guessing and checking and foiling it. If we use a generic rectangle, we got to set it up first. So box and diamond method. We're going to put the first term here in the bottom left. Then we'll put the last term here in the top right. And we'll multiply those two together and we'll put them in the middle up here, 7x squared. Okay, the last thing to do to set it up is we're going to put the middle term, 8x, in the middle of our diamond. Okay, here's where the guessing and checking happens. We got to figure out what goes here and what goes here. So if you'll remember, on the diamond problems, if this is an x and this is a y, then if you add those together, that's what goes here. And then if you multiply them together, that's what goes here. Okay, so the multiplication of those two goes on the top, and then the sum of the two, so mult, goes on the top, and then the sum goes on the bottom. Okay, so here's where you got to guess and check it. So 7x and x, if you multiply those together, you're going to get 7x squared, and then if you add these together, you're going to get 8x. So now that we figured those two out, that's what goes in the box. 7x goes there, and then x goes here. Now, from here, you're just going to pick any row or any column and see if you can find the factors. So we're just basically doing the area of this square here. The area is going to be x squared, so what two things can make x squared? Well, x times x makes x squared. And then from there, you can find this length of this particular rectangle is going to be a side of x, so that means this other side needs to be 7. And you can double check it. 7 times x gives you the 7x. All right, so 7 times what gives you 7? Well, it's got to be 1, and then the last box here has got to be true. So 1 times x does give us x. And then the last step would be just to rewrite it so you can factor it. So this is x plus 7 times x plus 1. Now, this method can take a little bit longer, but when it's a little harder to guess and check in your head, it's going to be helpful for you in case you're stuck. All right, so this problem here we're going to try, it might be a little bit more difficult to try and foil it or guess and check it. But the process is the same. Just set up the double parentheses and then think about what first times first is going to give you 2x squared. Well, 2x and x are going to give us x squared. Now, as we go and guess and check this, try and use a FOIL, I know my last terms here, our last terms need to multiply together to get negative 15. Well, that tells me that the signs have to be a positive and a negative in order to get a negative answer. So I can set that up as a positive and a negative. From there, factors of 15. Well, here's where it gets a little more difficult. You got several options. You got 1 and 15, you got 3 and 5, and then we could switch the orders of that. So if you just want to try and guess it without thinking it through, you might put a 3 there and a 5 there. Well, if I do that, my outers and inners, so first times first does gives us the x squared. Our last times our last give us negative 15, but here's the problem with FOIL. We have to check our outers and inners. So outers here give us negative 10x. If we multiply the inners, it's 3x, that gives you negative 7x, and that's not a plus x. So we could try changing the signs Let's see if that works. All right, we're still going to get the same outers in, or our first times first is still going to give us 2x. Our last times last still gives us negative 15. But our outers are now positive 10x and negative 3x. If we combine those, we get 7. So we're still off. So not working out just yet. So maybe we can switch the sides of these. Put the 5 here and the 3 here. Now we get a plus 6x for our outers. And when we multiply the inners, we get a negative 5x. If we combine those, then we're going to get a positive x, which is what we need. So it looks like that's the right one. But it can be difficult to keep you straight. And you got to do some of that in your head and do some guessing and checking. And sometimes you get it right away and sometimes you don't. So you can use the box and diamond method. So remember to set it up, we're going to just put the first one here in the bottom left, 2x squared. The last one's going to go here, minus 15. We'll multiply those two together to get a negative 30x squared, and we'll put that in the top. In the middle on the bottom is just going to be the middle term there. All right, here's the difficult part where you got to kind of figure out what goes here and here. All right, remember, if we look back here, whatever, if we add those two side ones together, we're going to get the sum here, and if we multiply them, we're going to get the up top. So in order to get a plus x, and also think about factors of negative 30x, I know that one needs to be positive, one needs to be negative. So factors of 30, thinking 6 and 5, so 6x can go here, and a 5x can go here. Okay, or I'm sorry, a negative 5x. So 6x minus 5x gives us a plus x, or just 1x. And then up top, we're going to get the negative 30x squared. So now that we've figured those out, they go here, 6x and minus 5x. And then it's pick any row or any column and try and figure out the factors there. So let's see, I know 2x could go there and an x goes there. So 2x times x gives me 2x squared. 2x times what would be 6x? Well, that's a 3. And if you come back around here for this area, oops, 3 times what would give you negative 15? Well, that's negative 5, and we have to double check the last box. Negative 5 times x does give us negative 5x. And then it's just a matter of rewriting. So 2x minus 5 times x plus 3. And we could certainly do it in the other order, x plus 3 times 2x minus 5. Either way is fine if you reverse the order. So while this one might have been a little more difficult to try and foil it in your head or guess and check it just right here and get the answer, you might have been doing some trial and error and erasing. The box and diamond method might have been an easier method just because you have a method and it's a little easier to figure that out. It's up to you what you'd like to use. Okay, now we're going to be doing a couple problems. And the instructions are just going to be multiply the binomials and then to simplify. Okay, first example we're going to do, we have x plus 3 times x plus 9. So when you're multiplying binomials, you're just going to pick the first term and multiply it by each term in the second binomial. So x times x gives you x squared. And then you're going to also multiply it by the 9. So x times 9 gives you plus 9x. And then you'll take this next term, 3 times x, and that gives you 3x. And then you'll also do 3 times 9. I like to use these arrows just to keep myself straight so that I make sure I multiply each term. Now, we have to simplify it, and we also want to leave it in descending order. Okay, so the highest power term is x squared. There's no other x squared terms here, so we're just going to write that first. And now we can combine these terms, these x terms. So 9x and 3x gives us plus 12x. And then lastly, you have the constant of 27, so plus 27. And there's our final answer left in descending order with the highest power Looks like I forgot an x there. So highest power x term here, then on down the line in descending order till we get to the constants. Let's try another one. All right, this one's a little bit more difficult because you've got 3 things you're multiplying together. So 3 times 2x plus 3. And then we're going to multiply by 2x minus 7. So when it comes to multiplication, it doesn't matter what order you multiply these in. I'm just going to tackle this first one here, this 3 times the 2x plus 3, and we're just going to use the regular distributive property. So 3 times 2x gives us 6x, and then 3 times 3 gives you 9. So I basically multiply those two together, and I turned it into this binomial. And now I have 2x minus 7. So same thing, I'm going to do 6x times 2x first. That gives me 12x squared. 6x times minus 7 gives us a minus 42x. And then I'm going to go to this next term. 9 times 2x is plus 18x. And then I'm going to do 9 times negative 7 for negative 63. And then the last thing to do would be to combine those terms and then leave it in descending order. So there's no more x squared terms, so I know that one's finished. And it's just a matter of adding negative 42x and a positive 18x, which comes out to minus 24x. And then minus 63 is your constant. And there's our final answer, left in descending order. There's the x squared term first, and then the x term, and then the constant. All right, hope that helps out.